Live. Okay.
Should we run through everybody's names that's here?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Cheryl Cruz.
I'm Kayla Martin.
I'm Cammie Lloyd.
And I'm Spencer Lloyd.
Awesome. Okay, so the first question this week from our readings. Sorry, I just scrolled past it. Okay, so they asked, which of the readings do you side with more and why?
Hi guys.
Hi,
I'm so
Caitlin.
sorry.
You're fine. I literally just asked the first question, so.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm gonna call Malia real fast.
Okay.
State your name, by the way.
Caitlin Harker. I am Hanson, but it's Harker on there. Okay, I'm gonna call Malia real fast, and this is Malia Espinoza.
Yay. You look very cheery today. How are you?
Me?
Yes.
I feel like a chicken with my head cut off, but it's a much better week than last week.
I'm glad.
So, yes. Yes. I can see the light. How about you guys?
One more week. We can do it.
Okay, let's finish.
Oh, no.
Okay. I don't think she has service, so
That's
I'll tell her to call me when she does.
Okay.
You know, I can start. It's funny because when I first started reading these, okay, there was frustration going on in my home. I'm like,
Really?
I need to do my homework. And I tried to read these, and oh my gosh, you so need to do this under inspiration of the Spirit. That's all I have to say. Because I read through them, and I'm like, I didn't get even half as much as I did last night when I prayed about it, and I looked at them, and I'm like, wow, there's some major stuff here that, you know, it's just the difference of what each of them says. And so on that note, I side obviously, well, not obviously, but I side with the mothers who know, just because the things that are addressed are spoken straight of the Spirit. They're shared with love. They're expressed by, well, the words, to me, the words completely make sense. And there's a real conviction of peace behind the words that are addressed. And since there's the principles that we know as Latter-day Saints as well, that makes a difference. I just love the fact that it talks about our divine potential and responsibility, but she addresses it in the way that allows mothers to know what their purpose is in the home, and for their children to make up the future and make our whole world prosperous. And so that's why definitely the mothers who know.
Yeah, I like what you said about the Spirit, Cheryl, like how you felt the Spirit with that talk. And as I was thinking about both talks, I just had the thought that, you know, Sister Beck is called of God, and that if she gave that talk in general conference, then obviously that is what God wanted us to hear, or else he wouldn't have guided her to say that, you know. And if we truly believe that, whether by God's voice or the voice of his servants, like it's the same, and that she was speaking for him, then we can know that what she said is true, because she was being a mouthpiece for God. So yeah, that was kind of a thought that I had with her talk.
That's how I felt too. When I compared the two, I felt myself getting so defensive.
Yeah.
And I felt like, I wonder what Sister Beck's reaction was reading this opposing talk. And then the thought came to me, well, that's why she's called of God to do what she is and you're not, because I had like my fists out, and I'm like, well, we didn't say we didn't believe that, or, well, you're implying that we believe, you know. I just got so defensive. But that's why Sister Beck is where she is, because she is such a great mouthpiece for us, and mothers and fathers. And I just felt such a humble reverence. You could feel the Spirit, and it does testify the truth in what you read. And that's one thing I noticed is when I read her talk, I felt peace. It wasn't bringing anyone down. It wasn't attacking anyone. It was just providing support. When I read the other talk, it was very the other way, which is not bad, but you can just feel a difference in when you're reading something truthful and something that maybe could be attacking other people's views. And anyway, that's kind of how I felt about that.
So you guys are so funny. First of
Oh no! Oh no! We're gonna hear it now.
I know, I'm
No,
like
no,
waiting
no.
for Spencer.
You guys are hilarious. Okay, because here's what happened in my home. We listened to the Mothers Who Know talk, and it was awesome. And Cami was like, "Oh, it's so wonderful," and she was happy and giddy. Now she is pregnant, so it's not really fair. But then we started listening. She started reading the other one, and we usually just read stuff out loud together to one another. And she started reading it, and halfway through, she's like, "This is pissing me off." Excuse my language. I probably shouldn't say that on but it was so funny. She was like, "This is getting me so angry." And so what's so interesting is about how you guys could notice the difference. Like, because to me, it was just like listening to those talks where the young man was like giving a really persuasive talk about how his mothers should be able to marry one another. You remember? Like, to me, it's just someone's opinion. But what's so interesting is because you guys are so passionate about mothers. I am too, not to say that I'm not. It's just, I think I've heard so much of this that to me it's lip service, you know, it's just like, they're just talking, so whatever.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that it's so sacred to you, and because you guys feel the Spirit, you obviously know the difference. And that stuff was really just, I think what is, like Cami pointed out to me, that a lot of it is, what'd you say? A lot of it's just like little minute things that don't mean anything, but they make a huge deal out of it and try to manipulate what Sister Beck said.
Yeah, I was talking about the white shirts, like where they're like, some of us can't clean our clothes, like it's not our fault, kind of an idea. And and I was like, that's not what Sister Beck was saying. She was saying, like, she's commending these women who take the time, like, and don't have the resources, but they still find a way to make sure their children are clean and well dressed to go to church.
Yeah, I know I felt that way about like every point that they made in the What Women Know. Like, I literally, after I read the What Women Know, I had to go back and read Sister Beck's talk again, because I was like, did we read two different talks? Like, I don't feel like she said anything like offensive or anything about what they were saying. It was really interesting perspective that they took on her talk.
You know what? It's really interesting because What Women Know, if you do not read it, following the Spirit, or like just being in tune with good, the good things in your life, you'll go through this and just like, oh yeah, you'll just go through it like it's no big deal, and then those things influence you. And I'm going, but when I took a second look at it and went back over it after I prayed about it and said, I want to be able to grasp what the messages are here, I went, wow, this blows me away. And it's just the little things. It's just the very little things that are impacting if you read it according to, the way it's written. It's just the little things that could influence you versus, what the Spirit is trying to tell you. So
Okay, here's what I got too, is, have you guys, and I'm sure all of you may have experienced this, have you ever been offended at some point in your life, and then later you realize that what you were offended about wasn't even real? Like, the person that you were upset at, like, you took something totally different than what they actually meant, and so it was a figment of your imagination. You created it, and it wasn't real. And then you're like, wait, how did I? And I dwelt for days or weeks on this one topic, and it turned in, and it was nothing.
Yeah, it's never happened.
Because
I have never experienced that, Spencer.
Yesterday.
Yeah, be quiet.
Yesterday.
I think it's so interesting because that's how Satan works. He creates something out of nothing. And it's so interesting to read this kind of stuff because you're right, Cheryl. That Sister Beck was obviously guided by the Spirit. I mean, who knows how long she prayed to write that talk, right? And then somebody turns it into something that really was not what she meant at all. Obviously, we all realize that. I had to go back and look at Sister Beck's words too, because I'm like, how could you get that out of what she said? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What I was most shocked about was that I was like, oh, these are just like people that are like upset with the church and they're people that don't believe the same thing, and they're like, no, one of our things that unites all of us is that we're Latter-day Saints. And I'm like, how could you take these words that were inspired and misconstrue them so much? It just didn't make any sense to me. But I guess it's one of those things like in the scriptures where it says even the very elect shall be deceived. Like,
yeah.
And it's just sad to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So did we answer all the questions with
I was just going to say, we've kind of gone over everything. Cammie just brought up the last question about how the elect will be deceived. But then it also asks, like, how can we avoid being deceived? Like, what can we do to avoid that? So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
By the way, on the second question, it talks about the tone of what women know. I was blown away with the tone because I felt the tone was really based on, I don't know, I feel like it's a total shirk of responsibility. And it almost like, well, if we have to be mothers, then, well, okay, I guess that's okay. But we are built for something better in this world than just this, And so I thought, what an attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it just kind of took it. I thought there was a lot of cynicism there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was blown away with.
I didn't like how they brought the stripling warriors into it.
Yeah,
that's
so sad.
Yeah, that really, I'm with you. I just kind of felt like it was very attack mode.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's because I am super passionate about the church, and it's like my baby. Like, if anyone starts talking about it in a way that I feel is attacking, it's very hard for me to not automatically show bias towards it. But I felt like when they were just trying to pull up whatever they could to sway readers into believing that we just believe, like every point they brought up, if they would actually take time to research and get to know what the church teaches, every single one of those points would have been invalid. I felt like.
Oh yeah.
So it was hard for me to, I don't know, appreciate. I just what you said, Cheryl. The tone was very cold and bitter and felt very, I don't know, I felt the spirit, and then the second I started reading that, it just went away. And I talked to my mom about it, and she said, I've never told your kids this, but there was one time in my life where and my mom's always been so strong in the church. And she said there was one time I was home alone, your dad was working, and I was on the internet just scrolling, and I saw this article that had a catchy title, and so I clicked on it, and before I realized it, it was anti-Mormonism material. And she said an hour went by, and I finally realized I had spent all this time reading anti-Mormonism things. And the more I read it, the more I felt myself questioning, like, well, that's maybe a good point. Why do we do that? Or, and she said it was so scary how fast it sucked me in and how quickly Satan jumped on that moment to really make my heart feel like I wanted to explore more of it. But anyway, I thought that was interesting because I think a lot of times that kind of material can just way and introduce another spirit that can maybe fog up our way of thinking. Not that it's bad to, explore and figure out for yourself, but I do think there's certain material that might be misconstruing and misleading. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I think it's really interesting that you bring that up, because these are members of the church, and so you would think that their point of view would go along with the doctrine. And I would, like, if I had just read that top part that was like, yeah, we're members of the church, I would have been like, oh, okay. And I would have read their article like, open-heartedly and been like, wait a second, they're totally right, without reading Sister Beck's talk, like if I didn't know the talk at all.
Right.
It makes, like, and I think that's one of the ways that we have to be really careful of not being deceived, is because like things like that are out there, and like we have to really watch what we're participating in and what we're partaking in, just like your mom told you, like, because otherwise we're like, wait, that does kind of make sense, and we use man's logic instead of trusting God's wisdom.
That's a good point. Because with the Stripling Warriors thing, how they said, we're going to praise this group of kids who went and killed other mothers' children. And I just thought, that is so manipulating.
Yeah.
But you're right, Kemi. It's in a way that it's like man's logic. That's logical. It's not a completely absurd point. Like, that's how they get their viewers. And I think it was very, what's the word? Very deceitful, well, not deceitful, but very tricky how they put everyone's list of names at the bottom. And I think they did that to persuade other people to say, look at all of our supporters. Look at how many people believe this. We're not just, a group of 5 people. There's all these people who are with us on this. And I thought that is very, it's almost like a strength in numbers thing.
Yeah.
That I got a feel from, where Sister Beck, it was just her presenting. It wasn't,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Spencer. Go ahead.
No, sure. By all means.
I was just gonna say, with what you just said, Kaylin, is the Stripling Warriors situation. I thought that was very interesting because, I look at when I look at something, read something, I think, does it pass the test of bearing good fruit? Does this actually bear good fruit? Does it teach what our doctrine teaches and what the scriptures testify of? They took something from the scriptures and made it completely meaningless, like as in, oh, this is terrible and stuff like that. But I kind of wonder, all those women who were part of, all those women, I wonder how they really interpret the scriptures. If they interpret the Stripling Warriors like that, I kind of wonder what they even get out of the Book of Mormon. Like, as in, it can't testify truth to them if they're pulling it apart and making it fit their cup of tea. There's no spirit there in manipulating what the scriptures teach us to make it towards your views and how you want to view things. So I'm sorry.
I like that, Cheryl.
That's kind of one thing that's really keeps coming to my mind is the idea that, so if you actually look at where this rooted, the reason why they wrote this is because somewhere they were offended, right? That's the idea, is that offense has taken place. Now, here's the tricky thing, because like we've already established that when you are offended, it spreads like wildfire. Like Caitlin said, the reason why they wrote all those names is because they wanted other people to see that other people are also offended. And the whole thing behind that is being offended is a choice.
Right.
So this is the tricky thing, though, is, are we going to be offended by their comment? Because all we do is continue spreading the wildfire if we take offense too. So I don't mean to like say, hey, you guys are doing it.
No.
What I mean is, like, we have to be careful, because we take it with a grain of salt, because we've established that what they've come to is not of God. It's not where Heavenly Father wants our hearts. So we should turn to Christ. We should go back to Sister Beck and say, you know what? This is what women are all about. This is who we are. Well, you are. I'm a man. But isn't that
I'm a man.
Being offended is what got them there in the first place. Like, and if you look at it, it's so easy, because offense is a choice. It really is. And you have to be careful to get too far in, because then it turns into that black hole of blaming and calling names. And then, did you guys read that talk? I think it was in this class. It was about rearing. What was it called? Rearing something citizens, responsible citizens. Was that
Yeah.
the class?
That was his class.
Well, that's
And
another
there was
class.
a talk that was all about how contention, well, it was saying the last point was that contention should never be in trying to persuade or be a family advocate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't use contention. So if being offended is contentious. So we have to.
Right.
Those are my thoughts.
That's a great point.
That's actually a really good point that you brought up. That's actually a really good point about being contentious, because, you know, you lose the spirit and stuff. You know, on that,
Exactly.
I pulled out what you just said. Well, I'm a man, so we passed up. I'm just kind of curious. I want to go back to this question about how might a man's understanding of conviction of a woman's role dramatically impact the eternal well-being of children, families, and women.
Well, so you want me to answer that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what I think. So my whole point in life is try to stay so close to the Spirit that I can feel the difference whenever it's not there. And I think I've come to that point where I do most of the time, and I can feel when the Spirit leaves in its absence. And it's obvious to me that the Spirit is in a woman's role in nurturing and loving and taking care of their family. Like my wife takes care of me, like when she cooks a meal or she's feeding the baby or doing something like that. The Spirit is present, and so I'm all for having the Spirit with me. So as far as my understanding of a woman's role, I don't know if I'm answering the question right, but like what's it called? I have a strong conviction of what Sister Beck said. And so when someone opposes that, I just let it be because I don't agree with it. It's not something that means, it's just like, you know, everything that goes on outside of my home, I just let it be. I can't control it except for getting involved in persuading to do what's right. I don't know if that answers that thought, but.
Yeah.
But it's your thoughts.
I think also that like men need to understand God's role for women so that they can support them in that role, you know, like especially as husband and wife. Like if a husband doesn't understand that God ordained his wife to be nurturing and to raise their children basically, then, you know, maybe the husband would say, let's put off having kids, or why don't you go get a job even if she doesn't need to, so we can have extra money, you know? But when he understands what her role is in God's perspective, then he can support her in fulfilling that, if that makes sense.
And that's my point, and that is exactly right, Caitlin, because that's my idea of saying that as you stay close to the Spirit, it will teach you.
Yeah.
You'll learn that a woman's role is that. Like watching my wife, I've learned more because I was married before. Did I tell you guys that? You knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And the two, there's a contrast that is just insane. Seeing the two, and I wish I could put it side to side and let people see what I see. But the feelings that come from the actions of the different actions that I've seen are just tremendously different. The Spirit is in one of them, and then the Spirit's not in the other. Not to say anything bad about my ex-wife, because I actually still love her. I think she's wonderful. But it's obvious to me to see what a mother's role is about and when the Spirit is in that. And so anything that I do should be to encourage the Spirit to be with her. Or if that, yeah, kind of like what you were saying.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because that I didn't really know how to answer that, but then again, I had too much on that, like that question about the man's understanding of a conviction of a woman's role. It's funny because I grew up with my second part of my childhood, I grew up with a stepfather who was completely, what do you call it? Not a good father by any means. He was a priesthood leader, but went to the temple the whole bit, but completely the opposite what he was. And I just find that as far as the impact, the eternal well-being of the children, it's kind of, I don't know what you want to call it in my life. It's kind of made me a little bit hesitant on Now this might sound bad, but I've had, the last 17 years I've been married, and there's certain things that come up or said in just marriage that kind of like, I put on my, like, okay, let's box about it. I don't know. I put on my defensive mechanisms, you know what I mean? Because of what I've seen in my home, and if there's anything that just slightly goes against, or how I feel like goes against that, I kind of go, okay, well, I kind of take charge of things, which is my bad. I shouldn't do that because I have a really good husband, but I kind of take the role of, well, this is how things should be, versus how they were in my life. This is how things should be. And since we're all since we're all married to imperfect people, sometimes I have a tendency to downplay what's good. Does that mean, I don't even know how to express that, except for the fact that the eternal aspect of children growing up, when you have not such a good childhood of someone that's not very good, and then you grow up and you take that into marriage, that's not a good thing. Like it becomes a, what am I trying to say? Like, I guess the habits that you are able to form or able to see when you're younger goes into your marriage, and you have to constantly have to change yourself to make it known that I don't have that situation that I grew up with. So, but yeah, I'm always on defense to make sure it's not there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anyways, I just figured. I'm rambling now.
No, that's a good point, Cheryl.
So
I think just one more thought I have while you guys have been talking with the last question. Like, I think, like, I don't know, just kind of a theme of what we've been talking about. Something that we can do to protect ourselves is to be humble. Like, I feel like with what Spencer was talking about how, like, getting offended can lead us to, like, drift. I think it's so important that we're meek and humble, because then we'll be less likely to get offended or to question the scriptures, and I think it's easier for us to feel and to follow the Spirit when we're humble. So I think that's one thing we can do to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
I like that, Kayla. I think it would be kind of like, I think that if we choose to be offended, then we could run the risk of like writing another website that's all about how these people are wrong, and just bringing more contention to the argument rather than just letting it go and being kinder than choosing to be kind, even when other people choose not to.
Definitely.
I like, there's a saying, I'm not sure which talk it was, but I think it was from this class that said, or maybe it wasn't, but it said, anyone who has contention within their hearts is not of God. And for some reason, that just really hit me, because at that moment, I didn't feel like I was being, I didn't feel like had he been in my presence at that moment, I would not be worthy of him. And that's probably my biggest thing, like Kayla was saying, is being humble and meek, and being able to allow others to state their beliefs and not take offense to it. Because truly, like Spencer said, taking offense is 10% others and 90% of us. So 90% of being taking offense to something is our choice. And I think that's why it was so, Christ demonstrated it so perfectly, because of course he was perfect. But for me, that's probably my biggest trial, is to not have contention in my heart. And so when I read that, I just felt super strongly that that was something I needed to work on. And that's why when I read that article, I felt bad that I was feeling that. Because I totally was. I just felt so defensive for Sister Beck. But then it hit me like, she doesn't need me to defend her. She has God on her side, and she is probably reading this saying, you know, I love this person that wrote this. So anyway, that was just kind of my thought regarding that.
Does anyone else have any other thoughts before we wrap up our meeting? Do our 2-minute wrap up. I forgot about that at the beginning of our meeting.
Someone's calling here.
I didn't take notes or anything.
I know.
I didn't either, but maybe we could all do it.
Do you want to go
Yeah.
through each one, just wrap up one little thing for each one?
Yeah,
Sure.
let's do that.
Person?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't have the questions pulled up in front of me, but I can.
I don't either. Give me a second.
We could each take
That's
one
easier,
question.
right?
Okay.
This is a good discussion. It was short, sweet, and it was uplifting, that's for sure.
It's really funny because if you guys would have been to our sacrament meeting on Sunday, you wouldn't think I'm very humble.
What happened?
He got a new calling, and then he was asked to bear his testimony because of the calling. And he got up in front of everyone and was like, and told everyone, because he used to be the first counselor in the Young Men's presidency, and now he's the
No, I used to be the first counselor in the Elders Quorum president.
and now he's the president of the Young Men's. And he's like, yeah, I don't know how the Elders Quorum is going to survive because I'm not there anymore. And like he just kept going on and on about like how great he was.
Like,
No.
It's a
wasn't
big
me.
joke. It's a big joke in the ward, really.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
but-
everyone knows that it's like not really what it is, but him and the Elders Quorum president.
Between the Elders
They-
Quorum president and me, we're like best friends, so we always go at each
Oh,
other. At the pulpit, I told that I was better than him in every way.
that
It
is
was pretty
funny. Oh,
And I'm the new Young Men's president of the ward. I thought that was so funny.
And one of his counselors then got up and said, well, the nice thing is I know that I'll never be as good as Spencer. So we can just start off on that, but he never has to tell me.
that's
it was
fun.
awesome.
that is
It was
hilarious.
actually really beautiful. It was a cool section.
Hopefully there was no investigator there.
I don't think there were.
I think Taylor was just calling me to repentance, or the Lord was through me. He was saying, "Be humble, Spencer."
Oh, that is funny.
Do not stand on that. Sit down. Sit down.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I'll take the first two,
Okay.
and then, or is that okay? And then we all just take one after? Okay, so I'll start. This is our 2-minute wrap up. The first question was, which of these readings did you side with more and why? I think the consensus was that we felt naturally to side with Sister Beck's talk, The Mothers Who Know, just because it was insightful and didn't come off as attacking, and it provided insights that were beneficial for not just moms but dads, and had a spirit about it. The second was, what did you think was the tone and focus of the Women Who Know article? Did you see any of the philosophies of men dealing with doctrine? If so, where? And we decided that the tone and focus of What Women Know was a little bit more contentious and didn't allow the Spirit to preside. And we felt that as we read it, the Spirit kind of left the room. It took what Sister Beck said and kind of manipulated the words, and just kind of had a more of an attacking tone. And let's see, did you see any of the philosophies of men mingled with doctrine? If so, where? I'm not sure if we did.
I don't think
Did we talk about
we didn't really talk about that, but I did in the article, like some of the things like that men and women should be equal in all things. Like it's not the woman's place to or not only the woman's place to nurture, everyone should nurture.
Yes.
And where they talked about women shouldn't be the only ones that work, like they need to teach their children. Like all of those are philosophies of men that weren't really addressed in Sister Beck's article, but that these people took out of context and said, this is what she was trying to say, and that's not right.
Right. Thanks, Cami.
No problem.
Okay, and then question 3.
I can take question 3 since I've been talking.
Okay.
If there were a document titled What God Knows About Women and Mothers, which of these 2 articles you read would most closely resemble that? And I think we all agreed that the mothers who know would most closely follow what God knows about women and mothers, much more so than the other article.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'll take number 3. Oh, were you going to continue talking there? Did I cut you off? Okay, I thought I cut you off. I'm sorry. We didn't really discuss this next one either, but that's all right. So what do you know a woman's role to be in our Heavenly Father's plan? Well, first of all, they're the heart and the spirit of the home. They're the nurturers and they're given a special gift to bond with their children in a special and unique way that gives them power to influence for generations and throughout eternity. And they're the only key in which we'll be able to provide life upon this earth, as well as they're the leaders of spiritual goodness for this children to help our children get back to Heavenly Father. That's one we didn't cover, but.
Perfect. And the next question was, how might a man's understanding and conviction of a woman's role dramatically impact the eternal well-being of children, families, and women? And we agreed that men need to have a conviction, understanding of women's roles so that they can support women in those roles, and so that they, as they are living close to the Spirit, that they can fulfill their own role as husband while supporting their wife in her role as wife and mother. And so we just felt that it's really important for men and women to live close to the Spirit so that they can fulfill those roles that God has given them.
And then the last question, the Savior said that in the last days, even the very elect shall be deceived. How can we avoid being deceived by the world's philosophies of men and women's roles? And I think we all talked about how that in order to avoid being deceived, we have to make sure that we stay close to the Spirit and close to the Lord, and that we avoid being offended or being too contentious, and always to be humble and to try to stay close to the Lord in all we do.
Awesome.